Langsett is the largest of the South Yorkshire reservoirs.
On a beautiful summer's day, we took a walk around the reservoir and the surrounding moors.
And we came across a wealth of features that we're excited to share with you on this path to the past.
So it's a beautiful summer's day here in South Yorkshire. So today we're going to do a lovely walk which is around Langsett Reservoir, which you can see just behind me, and we're going to take in a lot of the beauty, a lot of the history, and bring to you this wonderful place. So sit back and enjoy this wonderful journey.
Work on this reservoir began around 1899. It was one of a series of reservoirs built close to the city of Sheffield in order to provide fresh water for the ever-growing population. So this sits a few miles from the town of Penistone and also close to the town of Huddersfield. But yeah, this particular reservoir was mainly built to provide fresh water into Sheffield. Now it has quite a history because during the Second World War it became a hive of activity. After the dam busters had conducted their raids over the Ruhr Valley in Germany, the church was quite fearful that the Germans might retaliate by doing something similar and bursting all the dams that fed the industrial city of Sheffield. So we had quite a lot of war defences put up around here. And then a little later in the war, this whole area was used for tank training practice before troops went across the channel on the Normandy landings and through D-Day. Quite a heavily wooded area, as you can see. Now these trees were planted in order to increase retention of water through the soil and to improve the quality of the water draining into the reservoir.
So this is an absolutely stunning area to walk. You will have miles and miles and miles of moorland, of reservoir, of accessible paths. Absolutely wonderful. You can see today that the water is relatively low. We've had quite a dry summer, so that means that yes, our reservoirs are actually quite low at the moment.
So beneath this reservoir, as is the case of most of the reservoirs in this area, there are abandoned and derelict farmsteads which had to be vacated when the reservoir was built for the greater good of the population, as it were.
Wow, can you see how the water has just, well, it's disappeared basically, and you can just see the edgings of the reservoir there.
Yeah, the stream might have looked like this 130 years ago before work on the reservoir started here. Just a little babbling stream through the valley.
Yeah. Less than a mile from the car park and you're into the beautiful wide outdoors.
Hinges from when there would have been a gate across here. Yeah, I've read that when the reservoir was built, ancient pack horse routes that used to traverse this area had to be diverted, and I think a likely contender is this path here, which sort of loops round rather than, before the reservoir was built, this cutting straight across where it is now.
Needed some brute strength.
If you're enjoying the content on this video, please consider giving it a like.
And if you'd like to consider subscribing, it's absolutely free.
We're a new channel on YouTube looking to expand and bring you videos about all types of history.
One of the beautiful things around here at this time of year is the ferns, as you can see, and also when we get to the top you can see the heather just starting to turn purple. Again, it's just such a pretty area to come and walk.
We have read that many of these footpaths are made from rubble reclaimed from the Sheffield Blitz in the 1940s. So as we walk through this lovely area, privileged as we are, we remember some of the agonies that went into the history of Sheffield and the surrounding area. Langsett Reservoir covers an area of 125 acres and it has a capacity to store 1,408 million gallons of water. Small gate posts here, whether they led to something in that direction I do not know. So we've got the holes here where the gate would have been drilled in. The whole catchment area across Langsett Moors is over 5,000 acres, and Langsett Reservoir is the largest of the reservoirs surrounding the city of Sheffield. The Pennine peaks of Pike Low and Hincliffe Common lie to the south and southwest of the reservoir, and as well as walkers, the area is popular with mountain bikers, grouse shooters and bird watchers. And we've just come across the remains of the fascinating North America farm. And one of the main reasons it looked like this today is during the Second World War they were used as target practice for the tank crews preparing for the Normandy landings and the subsequent liberation of Europe. One little interesting tidbit I'll put in: my own father took part in the liberation of Europe. He wasn't in the tank crew, he was in the Royal Army Medical Corps, so areas like this have a special resonance for me when looking back at the Second World War. Now, whilst many people are aware of North America Farm's role in the Second World War, we've managed to dig a little bit further back in time and find some interesting details that we've never heard of before. Loads of rubble here. There's once a farmhouse, somebody's home. In fact, possibly here, a series of homes, or perhaps main living area here and some storage and outbuildings there. Across the way, remnants of another building. And here's a bird's eye view of the North America Farm complex. Now we've managed to go right back to the 1850s and 60s and find some details of the people who were living here and the sort of work they were doing. So I found that in 1851 the farmer here was known as Joseph Silverwood, and he had a farm of 23 acres but also 235 acres worth of heath. By 1861 his son Asa Silverwood had become the farmer here, with the area being listed as the same, 23 acres and 235 acres worth of moorland. But by 1866 we know that the Silverwood family were selling up, and in fact Asa Silverwood moved to Penistone. We can see here particulars of sale: cows, sheep, a draft mare, hay, straw, turnips, potatoes, wool carts, other farming implements. After selling up, Asa Silverwood then became landlord of the Britannia pub here in Penistone. I did manage to find the grave of Joseph Silverwood, the farmer there, in 1851, buried here in Penistone churchyard. Not been able to find Asa's grave as of yet. So if anyone else has any further information about the history of North America Farm, perhaps when it was built, when it was finally demolished, then I'd love to know. Yeah, it had to be vacated because the water board didn't want infected water from farm use seeping down into the Langsett Reservoir, so it became abandoned around the turn of the century. But yeah, I'd love to know any more history of North America Farm and the Silverwood family that anyone else might possess. A little plaque on that. Let's go and see what it says. To make our way through the ferns. Plaque reads, Trisha and Tilly back together, forever in their favourite place. You can see a hinge on there as well. There's a doorway here. It's refuel time with some sushi and a grab bag of Walker's cheese and onion crisps. What's your favourite flavour? Let us know in the comments below. So there is still some evidence of when this was used for target practice in the war. That stone over there has shell and bullet holes.
So we leave the site of North America Farm and we continue our walk in the late summer sunshine.
And the material on the footpath here really does give the vibe of being from the centre of Sheffield. Blitz remains brought out here, so just think about all those poor people who suffered during those terrible years.
So we can see how dry the river is. There's hardly any water at all at the moment.
Anyone fancy going up there? Not us today. So after quite a rocky section, we now get onto a more easygoing path, which isn't turning my ankles and ripping my feet to shreds, which is nice. A little bit of a quarry up there, I think. And indeed it was a sandstone quarry shown here on this map from 1851. Lovely bit of shade in this section here on such a hot day. So I've read that in this area, and this tree is often covered with decorations, and there we get to Christmas. This area, there were smoke pots used to defend the area during the war. I'll find out a little bit more about that when we get home. One thing we did find was that Langsett Reservoir had to be defended during the war. There's these catenary towers which went across the reservoir, and the idea was to intercept any low-flying Luftwaffe planes. Churchill was very fearful that in retaliation for the dam busters raids in Germany, the Luftwaffe would try something similar, try and burst these dams and flood the industrial city of Sheffield. We actually found quite a few other leads about this area during the Second World War, so I think we're going to return and do a separate video about that. So if you'd like to see that and other videos we make around the area, then please subscribe to the channel. It's absolutely free. These old gate posts going off everywhere for when the land was farmed before it was cleared for the reservoir. Oh, trough here for thirsty horses and ponies, and a tree that gave up the battle against nature at some point. Coming up here to a tank road built during the war to give access, well, to the tanks. Yes, absolute hive of activity here by the military 80 or more years ago, so yes, we shall return and discover what that looked like in more detail. More old gate posts leading nowhere. Well, you can see across that field where there would have been a track. Might possibly have been some sort of gatehouse here where guards stood during the war, making sure unauthorised people didn't get access to where the tanks are doing the training. Bit of a gate post over here. I wonder if that's left from the war. These look fairly substantial too.
One of ticks.
Passing through the village of Upper Midhope, which overlooks the valley.
There's a nice refreshing breeze coming this way as we walk down. Enjoyable on a hot day. I'm sure if it was a cold winter's day we'd be saying, "Ooh, that's a cold wind." Something magical, isn't there, as you walk down a path like this. These are your paths to the past, with men, women, children. So many have walked before us.
And in a little while we'll be looking in more detail at some of those people who have walked before us. And coming down this road we emerge on the eastern side of Langsett Reservoir. This looks like an old quarry, maybe stone taken out of here to build the dam wall we're about to walk across. Or possibly even the stones on this wall as we lead down to the reservoir. So in common with all the other reservoirs we feature on this channel, a whole village had to be built for the navvies who were going to build this dam and fill these reservoirs. So a few facts about this embankment. It's 1,156 feet long with a height of 117 feet from the bottom of the old riverbed. So the embankment is 720 feet wide, with the bottom tapering to 36 feet at the top, and contains 900,000 cubic yards of infill, making it one of the largest earth embankments in Great Britain apparently. And we can actually see pictures of the valley under construction if you go on the Stocksbridge Archive website. Some lovely photographs there. Yeah, it really was a huge undertaking and totally transformed the look of this once peaceful and remote valley along the Little Don River. There's a whole light railway built, which we might make a video about in the forthcoming months once we've done a little bit more research. But yeah, whole transformation of this area. And as impressive as these earthworks and engineering feats are, I also want to think a little bit about the lives of the people who worked here. So just like up at the Howden Dams and over at Uden Village, there was a whole tin town built to house the navvies and some of their families. And it included a school, a couple of hospitals and a navvy mission run by this man, the Reverend Everard. Now, one piece of information I found that really gives us an insight into the lives of people who lived here was in 1906, once the work had finished, there was a big sale of all the materials that had been used to construct the Langsett Reservoir. There were cranes, steam engines, a canteen, a keeper's house, hospital, the mission hall with full billiard tables and fittings. A whole village had been called into being. It had thrived for a few years and it had been sold off and removed just as quickly. Many of the navvies went on to construct other dams in the South Yorkshire area. Perhaps your ancestor was one of them. Do let us know. I believe the road was narrowed at this point in the war to make it easier to defend. In fact, the kink in the road you can see on the right hand side was deliberately put in when the dam wall was built, so the Wagon and Horses pub in Langsett didn't have to be destroyed. Very grand Gothic designs the waterboards had in Victorian era. So grand was it, we have a Latin inscription up there. Ad gloriam Dei et in usum publicum, Sheffield et Rotherham et Doncaster. Just imagine these days opening a public building and going to the bother of putting a Latin inscription on it. I just don't think it would happen anymore. Unless anybody knows any different, in which case let me know in the comments below. So whether your interest is in civil engineering, in nature, in Second World War history, in the lives of people who lived 130 years ago, a walk around the Langsett Reservoir is hugely rewarding. This house is in the same style as the tower by the reservoir. I wonder if this was anything to do with the water board or corporation as it was known then. So that was a lovely 4-mile walk as we just make our way back to the car park. We hope you've enjoyed joining us, exploring this lovely scenery and some of the history around Langsett Reservoir.
So please don't forget to join us next time, where every journey begins with a path to the past.
So that walk was 3.93 miles back to the car. We are runners and we have an abhorrence of 0.9 something, so we're just going to walk an extra 100 yards or so to make it up to the full 4 miles. Does anybody else do that on a walk?